Hello everyone, this is me, RJ Sankhya. Welcome to TALRadio, where we shine spotlight on organizations and individuals that make a remarkable difference in the world. So today's show is dedicated to an extraordinary cause, one that has touched and transformed countless lives across Los Angeles County. So let me start with a question first. Imagine a city where no child goes to bed hungry and every family has access to nutritious food. What would it take to make a vision reality? So, this vision is exactly what Los Angeles Regional Food Bank has been tirelessly working toward for over 50 years now. So, founded in 1973, this nonprofit organization is a cornerstone for hope for over 800,000 people every month, providing essential food assistance through partnerships with schools, senior centers, shelters, and even more. So, the food bank's programs not only alleviate hunger but also contribute to a healthier and more equitable community. So, the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is not just a food distribution hub, it's a lifeline for many Angelenos. And with an unwavering commitment to reducing food insecurity, they've distributed over 1.8 billion pounds of food so far, showcasing what happens when compassion meets action. But first, let us meet the inspiring leader behind this remarkable organization. Joining us today is the incredible Michael Flood, the president and CEO of Los Angeles Regional Food Bank. So, Michael's leadership has been pivotal in expanding the food bank's reach and impact, especially during challenging times like COVID-19 pandemic. So, with decades of experience in community service and a steadfast dedication to eradicating hunger, he is an inspiration to all. So, without a further ado, let's welcome our guest today. Hi, Michael. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you so much for the invitation. I greatly appreciate it.
Really, we are honored to have you with us today, too. So, let's dive in. I'm eager to learn more about your work and the incredible impact of Food Bank. So, can you tell us about the origins of Los Angeles Regional Food Bank and its mission?
Yes. So as you mentioned, it was in 1973 that a gentleman by the name of Tony Collier um, saw that food was being thrown away, saw that there was hunger in his community, and started picking up donated food from a variety of sources in his pickup truck, out of his two-car garage. Tony, I didn't have the opportunity to meet Tony. He passed away many years ago, but those who did know Tony said he didn't really have any grand plan of what his action and work would turn into. He just saw that it made sense. And this was a time where food banks around the United States were beginning to pop up. The first food bank was established in Phoenix. Here in Los Angeles, this was maybe the second or third food bank after that food bank in Phoenix. And food banks have been focused on the fact that there's a lot of food that, for whatever reason, does not get sold through grocery stores or through food service like restaurants and the like. This food is wholesome and nutritious, and it makes sense to access that food, get it donated from whoever has that food, and get it to people who need it, seniors, family, children, adults, people struggling to feed themselves. So, here we fast forward more than 50 years since Tony's action started this work, and we have grown, as you mentioned in the introduction, to a much larger organization continuing the fight against hunger.
Wonderful, Michael. What inspired you to join Los Angeles Regional Food Bank? Can we know your story?
Yes, so just to be with an organization that is focused on benefiting the community good. That's the bottom line of the food bank, to help people as much as we can with food and nutrition. We're involved in nutrition education and other aspects of this work. My personal story is my parents immigrated from Ireland to the United States. I was born here in Los Angeles. However, the history of Ireland, of course, is one of famine and one of challenging times throughout its history with regards to food. So I think because of that kind of heritage, that this issue of hunger has been with me, and I've been really pleased to be able to focus on that for my career.
Wonderful. So, what are some of the key programs and services offered by the food bank?
Well, it starts with food. So we have a team that's focusing on all the relationships with farmers, growers, retailers, manufacturers, everyone in the food world to access food. One thing we started doing probably about 25 years ago here in Los Angeles. We were, I think, one of the first with a couple other food banks around the country, was starting to rate the nutritional quality of the food that was coming in, because this is donated, right? So, it can be a little bit of I would say, a delicate situation in terms of you're dealing with someone who wants to donate to you, but letting them know, there's certain items, such as candy and snacks and soda and items that, high in sugar, that really aren't the kind of items we're looking for, and they're not the kind of items that are being requested by the families and individuals we're serving. So for us, that means a heavy push into fresh produce. And so we handle, if you come to one of our distribution centers, you'll see a very large operation with cold boxes, freezers, storage, room for volunteers to sort the food. So the food acquisition is a really important part of it. The volunteer program is also important. Over the course of a year, we have typically more than 21,000 volunteers who volunteer their time at our food bank specifically, and helping with some of the distributions. And that doesn't even include the volunteers at all of our partner agencies, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the volunteer program is really important. On the distribution side, what we handle mostly food. We do see some non-food items in the grocery store, such as diapers and personal care products. And those items are in high demand by families and individuals. But the vast majority of what we handle, probably about 97% of what we handle, are food items. And then this food goes to a network of other organizations. We're a nonprofit organization serving largely other nonprofit organizations, food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, senior programs, youth programs, organizations serving specific populations such as veterans. And these organizations, more than 600 throughout Los Angeles County, which is the area that we focus on, are doing tremendous work in their local community, often providing more services than just food to people who are coming and getting help from them. And then in addition to that, that's where the bulk of the food goes. I would say about 85% of what we distribute goes to these organizations, and about 15% go to specific programs we've set up through the years, programs focusing on specific populations such as seniors, older adults, children, and then family distributions. These were really critical during the pandemic. They turned into these sort of large drive-through distributions that you might have seen on the news, locally and throughout the country, where again demand for food had increased so much. Having the ability to bring food to a location where people can come and access it continues today. So the big drive-through distributions definitely occurred in 2020, 2021. That program, the mobile food pantry program, has migrated back to still somewhat large, but not as large as those distributions, at sites like community colleges, where there's a lot of need, a lot of students struggling to meet all their basic needs, health clinics. You mentioned schools, parks, and other locations where we know there is need and demand for food assistance in the community, but maybe not one of our local partner agencies nearby. So these are some of the programs we've developed through the years. I also want to mention nutrition. We have a nutrition education team that's focused on providing advice to our agency partners so they can be set up in a way of not just providing more nutritious food, but providing nutrition education and also working sort of the food into tastings and recipes and other things. So the nutrition part is very important for us. And we also focus on public policy, advocacy, research, also very important. The decisions made in Washington, D.C., Sacramento, our state capital here in California, and here locally are very important to our work and can have a big influence on either, demand increasing or demand, hopefully, better public policy on demand decreasing because there are more resources available for people. So, in sum, the food bank is involved in a lot of different things. We have a great team here helping us do that. And I would say a lot of this work is done in partnership with others. I mentioned donors, volunteers, the partner agencies, and this other work really is done in conjunction with other partners and in a collaborative fashion.
Great, great, Michael. So, you've mentioned collaboration with partner agencies, right? So, how do you collaborate with your partner agencies to ensure that food reaches exactly to those who need it the most?
So the food bank serves more than 600 partner agencies throughout Los Angeles County, and some of these agencies have multiple sites where they're distributing food and providing help and assistance to the public. So our main connection with these organizations is providing food, and as I mentioned earlier, at times some non-food items to them for their distribution. So that goes back 50 plus years in terms of core work, central work to what the food bank is doing. Through the years, that work has evolved. We have a program called the Extra Helpings Program, which a team here at the food bank links our partner agencies to local food sources so they can pick up that food directly. For example, grocery stores. We have, I think, more than 1,000 grocery stores throughout Los Angeles County. These grocery stores, by and large, are located very close to one of our agency partners. So it doesn't make sense for the food bank to pick this up, right? In terms of and when donors call, they ask, and the expectation is either the food bank or one of our agencies comes and picks up that donated food. So we have the Extra Helpings Program, which is linking our partner agencies to local food resources so they can pick that up directly, which is important because a lot of that food generally is perishable, so it needs to be distributed pretty quickly before it spoils. And that makes sense environmentally, right? The fewer vehicle miles on the road, the better it is for everybody in that regard. So that's become an important program since it was launched in the late 1990s. The other, I mentioned the nutrition team providing what's called a nutrition pantry program in terms of a certification program, helping our agency partners provide more nutrition information and really weave kind of the nutrition work in with the food distribution work. And so we're very, very proud of that program and as that continues to roll out to our agency partners. We refer volunteers to our agency partners. I mentioned the food bank's volunteer program. Well, agencies rely heavily on volunteers to do this work. So our volunteer team helps refer, because LA County is a big area, 4,000 square miles. So if we can link volunteers to their local agency, that makes a lot of sense. And also, one thing we've been able to do prior to the pandemic, and even more so during the pandemic, is to be able to bring in some financial resources to increase the capacity of our agency partners. So this includes commercial refrigerators and freezers as fresh produce has continued to grow year after year. Equipment, just basic equipment at their site to be able to handle the food, and refrigerated trucks and vans to be able to, as I mentioned earlier, pick up food in a safe way And then also a lot of our agencies are involved in home delivery and getting food to seniors and families who have challenges, mobility challenges, challenges getting to their site so that they can get food in that manner. And then finally, we get our agencies involved in the policy work. Those in elected office, they want to hear what's going on in their local community and what the needs are in their local community. So our team links again many of our agencies to those who are in elected office, so they can hear directly from their constituents and people in their local community as far as what their needs are. So it started with food in the very beginning, and really just food, and through the food bank's more than 50-year history, we've layered on other work as we've asked the agencies, what do they need, what are they looking for, and then training. We do an annual agency conference to provide trainings and the like, and we do that throughout the year, but one big conference every year that tends to occur in the late summer. So anyway, it's a great partnership, and we view this as a partnership from the food bank's perspective in working with our many partner agencies throughout Los Angeles County.
So, what role do volunteers and donations play in your day-to-day operations?
So donations are critical on the food side. The vast majority of the food we handle is donated from private sources. USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, also plays a role in identifying surplus food items and getting that out to food banks. So that also is an important source. And then we purchase a small percent of the food overall to fill the gaps of what isn't coming in donated. We're very focused on sort of leveraging the charitable dollar. So we prefer to rely on donated food instead of purchasing, because there's just more bang for the buck there in terms of the funding that comes in for us. But we certainly do some food purchases to fill the gaps. So that's the donated food side. And again, it comes from all different sources: farmers, growers, manufacturers, retailers, food service companies, all different types of food. And a lot of that food comes in and is uniform, and we just have to check sort of the dates, the use by dates, and the product quality to make sure it's okay for distribution. And in addition to that, a lot of food comes in that's just sort of mixed and assorted. That this is often what comes in from retailers because they're pulling it off maybe the shelves and restocking their inventory. So that's where our volunteers come into play to be able to sort that food. Could be produce, could be all different dairy, could be all different types of items in there. So the volunteer program is a critical component to be able to sort that food, and some of it needs to be discarded. Again, we don't want to distribute anything that's not fit for consumption. The produce, some of that produce comes in from the farm in big field bins or totes. Well, that needs to get broken down, bagged, boxed for distribution to our agencies and through our programs. So that's another place where the volunteers come in. And then we also, for some of the food that comes in, we do what we call sort of kitting, which is boxing of food, different items in a food box. That can be shelf stable. Times it can be perishable. It's been frozen over the number of years. So this allows for, especially through some of our programs, to be able to distribute this food directly to families, seniors. We also focusing specifically on children through a backpack program and similar programs. So the volunteers are very important too in playing that role in terms of helping us kit or box food that goes out. So that's the volunteer side. We are a nonprofit organization. Financial contributions are really critically also important to the work to be able to pay for the operation, for us to be able to, have this, fleet of trucks. I think, as I mentioned earlier, when donors call, they expect us to go pick it up. So for every day, The trucks that are on the road, they're going to pick up donated food from our food donor partners. And then also they're on the distribution side too. So that part is very important for us.
All right, Michael. So, this question is directed for you. Can you share a pivotal moment or a success story that has stayed with you during your tenure?
Well, there are many stories. I'll just give you a few, if you wouldn't mind. Regarding our children's program, I mentioned our backpack program where there's a nutrition component to it. This is a program that provides food to children on weekends that are identified. This is one of the programs where we're actually working directly with schools, typically elementary schools, and the teachers and administrators there let us know in a really kind of confidential, appropriate way of which children they know are struggling with food over the course of a weekend. They get to know the children and can see that. So food going to those kids. I remember a girl, Gracie, who said, not only am I getting good food to eat, I'm learning what foods to eat, and that candy make my teeth fall out. So I shouldn't eat so much candy. So in terms of, the as I mentioned, it's the food part of it, it's the nutrition part in terms of, ensuring that, kids get that proper nutrition for healthy bodies, healthy teeth in her instance. So that's certainly something that stays in mind. And on the other end of the age spectrum, a gentleman by the name of Paul, I remember running into, I'd say a couple of years ago. And, Paul was part of our senior distribution program, where there's basically a monthly food box program of shelf-stable produce, other items to help seniors on fixed incomes really get through the month to that next Social Security check. And Paul, just readily shared that, this food is the difference between him dying and staying alive. It was that critical to him and his ability to sustain himself. And he was, a veteran of foreign wars and, had worked his entire life, but here he was retired in his 80s, and that food was so essential for his being and the like. So, those are two of I could we could spend an hour talking about just a lot of different stories of families and other individuals who have been just impacted by the work of our volunteers, of our team, of our staff, of our partner agencies, and how it's made a difference in their lives.
Wonderful. Those are some touching stories. I really appreciate those. So, lastly, in what ways can our listeners contribute from their side for the organization? How can they volunteer, or in what ways can they contribute?
Yeah, so there are many ways to contribute. You can volunteer your time. You can donate financially. You can get involved and help in a community involved way. If for those who are involved in the food world, because those are three main inputs: volunteers, financial contributions, and food contributions. Across the nation, there's a national network that we're part of called Feeding America. So feedingamerica.org is a great place to go to see who the local food bank is in your community, who you can help. Here in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank, our URL is lafoodbank.org. And there you can click on volunteer, donate, learn about, again, our public policy initiatives, research initiatives, and also where to find food. It's interesting. We measure, of course, what pages on our website get visited the most. And every day, every week, every month in and month out, it's find food. It's where can I go to get assistance? Where is the local partner agency in my community? When are they open? So myself as an individual or as part of a family can go and get help and get assistance. So There's a lot of information at lafoodbank.org. Definitely welcome for people to check it out. Also, here we're very fortunate to have some of our local educational institutions tracking, how many people are struggling with food insecurity. We have federal data through USDA and census, and that's very helpful. But LA County is a huge county with nearly 10 million people, residents here in LA County. And both UCLA in one study and USC in another study of tracking food needs have found that a quarter of the residents of Los Angeles County are struggling with food insecurity, struggling to meet all of their food needs. That's a lot of people. And, of course, it was higher during the pandemic when parts of the economy had shut down and the unemployment rate was even higher. But, we're nearly 5 years out from the onset of the pandemic, and we still see a quarter of our residents struggling to feed themselves. So that's, central to our work at the LA Regional Food Bank, our mission, my personal mission, why, certainly I'm involved in this work to do what we can to help the many people, the adults, seniors, older adults, individuals, kids in Los Angeles. Cost of living makes it very tough. We have, certainly a higher percentage of people who are experiencing homelessness than in other parts of the country. So we're very focused on doing what we can as an organization to help as much as we can.
Great. So, before we wrap up, I just want to ask you if you've got any message that you would want to share with our listeners. Also, I'll really appreciate if you can talk about the importance of community involvement in fighting hunger.
Yes. We've been talking about how an individual can help, right, in terms of volunteering or donating their time or support. We talked about how the food bank's founder, Tony Collier, started this work, right, in a pickup truck with one person. It's also very important for the communities as defined in many different ways to come together and to help and provide assistance. Many of the organizations that we're serving were started by one, two, or three people in a local community, seeing the needs of those communities and figuring out how to organize and help in that regard. But it's not just all about food assistance. It's providing information, linking people to resources. It's providing education. The nutrition side, as I mentioned, is very important. It's about growing food, right? In terms of that, there's huge opportunities to be able to grow food in local communities and connect people better to where food comes from, and to access great, fresh, generally organic food locally. So there are a lot of things. We have a lot of community gardens here in Los Angeles and a rich history with regards to that throughout the Los Angeles area. And the food issue is, and then there's systemic issues around food. It's now become a discipline. I've talked to local colleges that have classes about the food system and what's going on there. So there's a lot of opportunity. Food is so central to, of course, all of us and our being, and thus the whole system of food and how it's produced, how it's grown, how it's sold is of importance for all of us. So, we feel that, this issue, especially that we focus on, food insecurity and hunger, is an issue that everyone can do something about. Everyone can do something to help, and in that regard, and at that next level of coming together, as just neighbors, or through a school, or through a civic or social or religious organization, coming together and figuring out what the needs are. I definitely want to point that out. That first thing to do is find out what the needs are in your local community by asking people what the needs are in that local community, and then determining how then to be able to help in terms of providing some of those needs, or doing it in partnership with people, so they're also part of the solution.
Wonderful. Great chat with you, Michael. So, thank you so much for sharing your insights and incredible work of the Los Angeles Regional Food Bank to our listeners. Really loved your enthusiasm in sharing knowledge. So, thanks a lot, Michael.
It's my pleasure. It's been a really enjoyable time and talking. So thank you so much.
Really, thank you. We're honored to have you. So that was Michael Flood, President and CEO of LA Food Bank. For more information, visit www.lafoodbank.org. So we'll come back with more such inspirational stories. And until then, stay tuned to TAL Radio, powered by Touch Your Life Foundation. And this is me, RJ Sankhya, signing off. Take care, you all.